With us now on the show, we are pleased to bring in John Fitzgerald, the fine chief of the Keego Harbor Police Department. Chief, always great to have you.
Good morning, Ronnie. How are you?
And we are great. How are things in Keego?
Things are going very well, thank you. It's a great community, and we just went over like our crime stats last month with the city council, and happy to say it is a very low crime community. It's a community where people are keeping an eye out for each other, and I'm happy to be here working for these people.
So, Chief, with that, do you think because so many more people are at home now that they are watching out that crime is down, or could it be the opposite?
It's hard to say. Ours is pretty low, and it's always better when you have more people around. They're at home, they're looking out their windows, they're calling in a suspicious car that doesn't belong in the neighborhood, somebody walking around a house. We're getting phone calls on that kind of stuff, and we appreciate them. We try and come out and check out all those calls that we get, and I think it's just natural that if you have more people at home watching your neighborhood, you have a better chance of having less crime.
So my husband gets irritated with me because we, of course, live in a subdivision. So you pretty much know everyone that lives here. And when I see people and I don't recognize them, because I still always remember the story, there was a family in Sylvan Lake, and someone backed up a moving van to their house and stole everything. It was during the middle of the day, and neighbors saw it, but just assumed they were moving and didn't say anything. And so now I'm like, with people, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know you. Which house do you live in? If they don't have a house, I'll be, oh, who do you know in the neighborhood? And he's like, you can't do that. I'm like, oh yeah, I can.
That's being a good neighbor, and if you're doing it safely and watching out for yourself. If there's any suspicion that you truly think it's wrong, or there's any danger in it, call us and let us do that. But you're being a great neighbor, watching out for your next door neighbor and you across the street and all that. Great job.
Yeah. And I just think that neighbor probably felt horrible. They just felt horrible because they watched it, but just assumed they were moving, so.
I kind of had the same thing when we were moving into our new house. We were building in a new subdivision, and this is 20 years ago, but the house next to us, we were already in, and they were building the house next to us. So the builders would leave their work trailers on that lot, figuring that, hey, there's only a couple people living in this whole subdivision right now. We'll park it right next to their house, so it's less likely to get stolen. And lo and behold, wake up one morning and somebody's expensive woodworking trailer for all the finished trim and everything and tools and all was gone. And they came over and they go, we didn't see it because it was in the middle of the night and it was on the quiet side of the side of the house where you don't really look out and see. But yeah, you feel bad about that too. It's like, wow, they almost had me watching their stuff and I felt bad that it was gone.
There is a big change though, even in our neighborhood. Pretty much every house at this point in time has some type of Ring camera or device on their front doors. I don't know so much about the back, but at least on the front. Have you seen that tradition or just kind of change throughout the community as a whole?
Yeah, since I've come into law enforcement, it was very rare to see any kind of security system or cameras on somebody's house. And now you can almost count on every third house in the neighborhood having at least a Ring doorbell. And so we do use that when we can, when somebody's willing to share video with us. If you find out that your neighbor had something stolen off their porch, look at your video. If it shows anything that you think we can use, give us a call and we will come out and try and use that to stop crimes and solve crimes as much as possible. It could be a big crime, it could be a small crime, but it has come in helpful for police departments across the country when people are willing to share their video.
Because we recently had someone had some Amazon packages stolen off of their porch. I mean, people are pretty bold because you can see that they have a Ring camera right there. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times it seems like some of the thieves, they're like, so I'll be on camera.
Or nowadays everybody's wearing a mask, and in the winter they put hats and scarves and hoods up. My detective made one suggestion: if they have security cameras, have one of them more at an eye level than looking down, because most of our ones on front porches are looking down on top of people, where the baseball hat bill, the brim, and the hood covers their face, so it makes it harder to identify somebody. They're still helpful sometimes, and sometimes we'll catch a car in the background or some distinctive clothing on somebody. But if you have something more that goes right straight at their face, that'll be even more helpful for us.
That's a good tip to remember because it's not enough just to put the camera out there, but look at the angle of it as well.
Yeah.
And I know for us, a lot of times we forget to charge the battery because you can actually speak to people as well if it goes off. But if your battery's not charged, that's not helping you much because you're not getting the alert. So, Chief, I have to give kudos to you and Chief or to Officer Cote. Was it 2 weeks ago now? We were sitting here doing the show and we had an electrical fire in our garage, but I was smelling the smoke and I didn't want to call 911, but ended up having to. But Cote beat it here before the fire department, which I'm still in both cases, minutes, like literally, I don't even think it was minutes. And, but they were great. And so that is, again, one of the reasons we're so lucky to live in this community because the response time is extremely fast when you call for help.
Well, thanks for the compliment. I'm going to pass it along to Officer Cote. He does a great job out there in serving the citizens and being there when he's needed. So do the rest of the guys that work with us. And I know you know a few of them, and a lot of our residents know every one of them because it is a small community and they care about what they're doing.
How are things going for you guys? Like we were saying that we're like 10, 11 months into the pandemic now. In the beginning, there was so much concern about is someone positive or not positive, tested you couldn't even get a test. How are things going now? Is it become just pretty much normal to for your officers to respond and people, being respectful and having masks on when they get there and things of that nature?
Well, it's a mixture of everything out there because everybody's got a different level of concern for this virus. Some people are not that worried about it and have that attitude of, if it's going to get me, it's going to get me. And there's a lot of people that are truly afraid of it. And the good thing is you can make a choice whether you go out, whether you wear your mask religiously, whether, you take every precaution you can. I have seen more and more people getting less cautious as time goes on. But then again, remember, people are getting vaccines, and I'm not the medical expert, so I'm not going to tell you how they're working and how preventative they are. But people are getting their vaccines. Many people have already had it and have developed antibodies, and I don't know that they know yet how long those antibodies are going to stay in there or how much they're going to prevent either this version or whatever mutated version comes along. But I've seen a big change in the fear level of a lot of people out there. And there are some people that really should be cautious with the immune system problems and with health problems. And those are the ones that have to make that decision to, not mix and mingle out with the public. And then there's a lot of people that, with the rate of recovery for, it seems, a lot of people are going to be fine once they get it and have it. So I'm not the doctor to tell them exactly what to do, but I have seen a change in attitudes out there.
Have you and members of your team been able to get the vaccine at this point?
It has been offered. We have, it's kind of medical information, so we're not going to put out who has or hasn't, but it is available for first responder police officers now.
Well, that's good. And it's like you said, some people choose to get it and other people choose not to get it. I keep saying I'm going to go to, I think Kroger now, you can get the test to see if you have the antibodies. Because
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and someone said it was like $25, and because I'm like I've never had it, but I'm like I'm sure I've had it. Like I feel like I've had it. I've been out and around so much, so I want to get the antibody test, and for $25, it's worth it just to know.
Well, I think another way is Red Cross. If you go to donate blood, I think they do a test on your blood, and they'll tell you if you have the antibodies, and there you're doing something good for the community. It's not costing you $25, and you still get the answer.
And that is such a great point that you just brought up because we had them on a couple of weeks ago and they need donors right now, especially people who have had COVID and they have the antibodies for them to be able to donate their plasma. So that's a good reminder there. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to tell you, for anybody considering doing that, I did go in and do that, and it's a little bit longer than a regular donation, but it's the same kind of thing. If you've ever had your blood drawn, it's not a big deal. You sit there and watch some TV. They take your blood, and I don't know how it helps, but apparently it helps severely ill COVID patients. So it's something to go out there and help other people with if you've already been through it and survived it.
You know what's so great about that is really when you think about it, you're helping save someone. Like,
Hmm.
and that's got to be a great feeling. And while donating blood has been, around forever, and we understand that portion of it, and it is contributing and helping other people. But really, when it comes to the plasma, I think people are forgetting that they do still need plasma because the vaccine is out there and everyone's talking about the vaccine, but a lot of people still can't get the vaccine. But there are also, like you said, some people just not comfortable getting the vaccine.
Correct. Yep.
Well, it's great that you did that. Did you get the cookies at the end though? I'm always like, what kind of cookies are you serving?
Of course, I got some of the cookies and I got some of the pretzels and I got a bottle of water. I mean, you're going in there, they're not paying you, but you might as well get something out of it, right?
Right. Um, hey, Chief. So while we have you here, obviously it's wintertime, and one of the popular things to do here in Keego Harbor is to go out on the lake and go ice fishing. How are things going? Have you guys had any incidents yet this year?
Luckily, we have not had any incidents. I think a lot of people are familiar with a couple weeks ago. Unfortunately, a young man went through the ice on Wolverine Lake, which is not too far from here. Same winter conditions over there as we would have here on Cass Lake and Sylvan Lake. He went through on a snowmobile and didn't survive. It took him an hour for rescue workers, from what I understand, to get to him and get him out of the water. And that's the problem you have when you go out on the ice. I mean, you may think it's safe, you may think you're ready for it, but if you go through, getting rescue workers out to you could take quite a while. You have to be prepared to save yourself. If you're going to venture out on the ice, you want to take those hand spikes with you so you can help pull yourself out of the ice. You want to know how thick the ice is where you're going. Study your lake and figure out where the currents are, because different currents in different parts of the lake change the thickness of the ice and change the stability of the ice. And you might be coming from a spot you could drive a truck on and feet over one direction, and all of a sudden you can't stand there because the underwater currents have weakened the ice so much. So you have to be very careful out there on the ice if you venture out yourself.
We hear the story every single year too, where as someone's pet goes out on the ice and the pet's owner goes out after them and they end up falling through. I believe recently with the West Bloomfield Fire Department, when they were at our house, they were telling us about another dog that fell through the ice and did not make it. And so it's like you said, it's important to know and understand the water, because we've done this interview a couple times and touched on this subject, but what you were just saying about the current, I never even thought about that as something to be aware of. So
Yeah,
always,
if you look on just out on Cass Lake, one part would be solid, but if you go up towards another area, towards where the river runs out to Otter Lake, you could see open water. So someplace in between there, the ice turns not safe, and if there's snow over the top of it, you don't know what the ice is underneath it. And from what I understand, a layer of snow helps weaken the ice too. So another thing to be cautious of.
and so with that, are your anyone on your department trained for water rescues, or that's pretty much handled by the fire department?
We pretty much leave that up to the fire department. They have better equipment and training for it. They're the real rescue guys, and I'm not going to say that our guys wouldn't be doing everything they could for you, but it's also another thing of, do we want to start losing other people for someone's mistake of what they did out there?
Right. I mean, there's a lot to go into these rescues and these water rescues, but we see them out there. And I will say, I know this past weekend, Sylvan Lake had a big ice skating event going on out on the lake, and I wanted to go, but I still get nervous. I don't know. It's like a mental thing, I think.
That's a common thing, and I don't know if you've ever fallen through, but I've gone through before in Lake Michigan, and that makes me extremely cautious on the ice. I used to be way more carefree, but years ago after I went through, it's like I don't trust the ice anymore because it seemed pretty safe where I was at. And I know people who will take their snowmobiles or drive their trucks out there. Another thing to remember is you take a vehicle on the ice, and if it goes through the ice, you are responsible for all the fees to get it back out of the water, which is not cheap. And you may be hit with from Department of Natural Resources cleanup fees if there's any oil spills, gas spills, that kind of stuff. So it can get very expensive if you end up having your vehicle go through the ice, because that is your fault for being out there.
Because also, how do you explain that to your insurance company? Oh, by the way, I just, no, I thought it was thick enough.
What was the one meme I think I saw? The pickup truck was nose first through the ice, and he's asking his insurance guy, "Hey, do we still get coverage if we hit an animal?" He goes, "Yeah, what'd you hit?" It was a walleye.
Oh, it's and it's really never, you feel so horrible for the people when it happens to them, because I've covered that story several times before in my past life, and they just feel horrible, but it's, as long as you survive it, then that's okay, because the rest of it can be dealt with.
Well, no,
Chief,
sorry about that, Ronnie.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say another thing on ice safety, and it's the same with water safety. If you're taking a vehicle out, and especially in a closed vehicle like a pickup or a car to go out ice fishing somewhere, you should have the tools in your car to get out. A window punch in case your car goes through. It's going to be the same as if it goes through and somebody drives off the edge in the summer. You're going to want to get out of that vehicle and not go to the bottom in it, and you may not be able to open the doors. Apparently, I saw a special on it the other day that your windows should work for 10 seconds to 1 minute to roll down, and that's what you should do first thing, is get them rolled down and get out. Don't stop and call 911 until you're safely out of the car, because you're wasting precious time to get out. But keep a window punch in your car, so that if you have to break a window, and go for the side windows, because the front and back aren't going to come out very easy, and get yourself out of that car and up on top of the ice as fast as you can.
Well, it's good advice, but let's hope nobody in the community ever needs to use it. With that, Chief, quickly before we let you go, obviously the bars and the restaurants are reopened for in-person dining. What does that mean for you and your team, or pretty much nothing?
It doesn't change a lot. I mean, it's the Michigan Department of Health that sets the rules and sets the guidelines. Every restaurant that decides to reopen, and I love seeing them come back. I know personally a couple of restaurants that have closed, and they're closed for good now because of all this. It's heartbreaking, the people that put the time and effort into it. The ones that are able to open back up now, and I know some are taking their time and going to give it a couple of weeks to see if they can get their workers back and how the flow of people is, because there's going to be people that don't want to go out to eat again yet. Still, they're worried about their own health, but as far as the rules and regulations for it, it's the health department and the restaurants and bars that have liquor licenses have to worry about their liquor license through the state is a big thing if they're not following the rules.
So if a complaint comes in, it doesn't necessarily go to your department for you and your officers to go to that establishment to check to see if they're wearing a mask or following the protocols set forth by the state then?
Well, if we get a call, we'll investigate what we get called to go investigate and look at. But for the most part, if we see something, and it's not immediately life-threatening, we're not arresting somebody at the restaurant. It might involve a report to the health department and let them worry about it with their administrative punishments that they do. I don't think it's really a criminal issue that the police department is going to arrest or write tickets for.
I think it's great that Oakland County has stepped in to help some of our local restaurants by providing them the outdoor garden sheds so that they could have some outdoor dining, because I don't think that's going to be going away anytime soon, especially if it's a 25% capacity. You're going to still need those. So that's been nice to see. I think it's Jaybirds, or that name changes all the time. I think it's still Jaybirds. I don't know, but B1s, they had them as well. We were sitting out there on Sunday, and it's chilly. It's still chilly, but it's still nice that they're able to reopen and provide some type of service.
And people are getting out of their houses and not having to eat out of a styrofoam takeout container if they're ordering out, which is just another nice thing. But it's just nice to be out and see people again. So.
I know, I miss people. I never thought I would say that, but I miss people.
Yeah, and that's why I enjoy still having to come into work, I do this because I want to, and the interaction with people is what I think almost everybody really needs.
Well, Chief, it's great to have you here with us on the show, and also we're lucky to have you here in the community, as well as everyone on your staff. And again, kudos to Officer Cote. He's so well known here. in our community. But he definitely can put a person's mind at ease when you're in those frantic moments of having to call for help.
Hmm.
And he's such a calming person as well. So it was great. And he, along with the members of the fire department, stayed and definitely made sure there was no further danger, because we were worried that the fire could have gotten into the wiring
Hmm.
and into the basement. But they were so good. And plus he, helped us get an electrician and everything. And so we're so lucky to call Keego Harbor a home. I will say, I remember way back when we were looking at buying houses, and I looked at a house in Detroit. It was probably 4 times the size, but less money. It was such a great house. But the number one reason we didn't buy is because you knew if you called 911, it was going to be a while before help arrived. So it's great that we have such it's a sense of peace here in our community. So thank you to you and your team.
Well, you're welcome. And sharing that with the fire department too. They make a great team with us, with Chief Flynn and his guys. So really appreciate the compliments, and I'll pass that on to Officer Gote and the other officers.
Well, and cookies are on the way. I just have to make them. I did make some the other day, but they burnt. So I'm like, I might just buy them. I'll go to Ellen's and buy them.
They burnt, or somebody at home just ate them up?
No, they kind of like, I forgot about them. I tend to do that. Well, and they were edible to a degree, but there's some like you'll maybe eat, but you can't give them away.
Oh, I know that story. Yeah, you can't throw them out, but you can't give them away. So
exactly. So, well, Chief, anything else you want to touch on before we let you go?
no, I think we got the ice safety, and I think we're pretty good. But one thing about you weren't sure about calling 911 right away when you were smelling the smoke in your house. If there's any suspicion of a fire going on, call 911. We'll get there. We'll figure it out. I mean, we're all paid to show up at your house anyhow. And I'd rather get there sooner than too late, because once they get roaring, sometimes they can't stop it. And I'm sure the fire department would agree with me on that one, that, if once you think there's something there, call us and let us help figure it out, especially the fire department.
Well, we're so appreciative of you and your service, and those of all of our first responders. So thank you so much. With that, Chief, we know you got a lot going on today, so we're going to go ahead and let you go. But thanks again for always taking time out of your day to be with us here on the MegaCast. We appreciate it.
Anytime, Ronnie. Thank you. Have a great day.
And happy Groundhog Day.
Oh, happy Groundhog Day. That's right.
I know. I'm like, that's what I said. It was like, it's like the last 11 months. Every day's Groundhog Day, right?
It's going to be spring sometime. So whether it's next week or 6 weeks.
Exactly. Well, thank you again.